both sides, of course, claim different things on civilian shields, too. And we have interesting evidence on that front, too. Now, we have an IDF video. Now, take these sources for what they're worth. This is the Israeli Defense Forces. They put together this video. They claim that they have captured this map that shows how Hamas does use civilian shields. And do I believe this? It's so tough. I'm 60% in favor of believing it. I could believe that this would happen. It's impossible to tell whether it's true or not true. But I think my leaning is, and the reason I'm showing it to you is, that it has a reasonable chance of being true. So here's a little video from the Israeli Defense Forces.
January 8, 2009, Israeli paratroopers operating in the northern Gaza Strip confiscated this map you see behind me. It was translated in the field and used by the forces in their fight against the terrorist organization Hamas. What this map proves is the way in which Hamas deliberately puts its own people directly in the line of fire, using them as human shields in their battles. What we see here is the Al-Tatra neighborhood of Gaza City. This neighborhood was divided into 3 areas of operation: the green, the blue, and the red. In each of these AOs, we have different dots symbolizing snipers and various types of IEDs, improvised explosive devices, both anti-personnel and anti-tank. I want you to notice how densely packed this neighborhood is, how close the homes are to one another, and how these IEDs are placed directly in between them and by their entrances. Now I want to focus your attention to this up here, right next to the Al-Tawhid Mosque outside of Shuhada Square. This sniper is positioned next to the entrance of the mosque, these arrows symbolizing his direction of fire. Another thing I want you to notice is this gas depot right down here. And that red dot down there is an IED, anti-tank. Very powerful, setting off a strong enough explosion to cause this gas depot to explode itself. Secondary and tertiary explosions that would have surely lit up this entire section of the neighborhood. Look at these houses, and look at that mosque right down there. This is the way that Hamas uses its people, using them as human shields, completely disregarding their lives and their property in its battle against Israel. This is our enemy, and this is how they fight.
Okay, now, could they have made up that map? Of course they could have. Anybody could have drawn that map. Or could they have just really discovered it? Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other people that would say, yeah, they put the IEDs in the middle of the road because that's where you're coming. And it's in the middle of the road, and it's, it's next to the houses because you invaded a city, right? But you take it, and you saw that evidence for yourself. You make your own conclusions on it. Now, the flip side is, Israel always says, hey, they used human shields, human shields. What's interesting is that in 2005, the Israeli Supreme Court ruled that the Israeli Defense Forces should not use human shields anymore. Now, they ruled that because Israel literally did use human shields. And I was sent, now, we've gotten some letters from the Israeli side. Well, I got an email from the Palestinian side directing us to a BBC report that showed, and it was originally captured by AP, actually, the Associated Press, a video where Israel uses human shields, even after the 2005 ruling. Now, this is not in this present conflict. This happened in Nablus in 2007, okay? But this is what a human shield actually looks like. Let's watch.
The Israeli army has been accused of using Palestinians as human shields during an operation in the West Bank. Pictures have emerged which appear to show one man being forced to accompany soldiers entering houses. The Israeli army says it's investigating. Our Middle East correspondent Matthew Price reports.
This was Nablus last week. Israel's army came to arrest men they accuse of plotting attacks against Israel. We filmed as the soldiers moved through the old city, but now details are emerging of what else was going on. Look at the man in the black top in this rare footage filmed by a news agency. He's a Palestinian civilian. The soldiers push him ahead of them as they search homes. An Israeli human rights group says he is being used as a human shield. We went to see the man, Sameh Omira, and retraced his steps from that day. He told me he was afraid. He said the soldiers had fired some bullets as they entered the bedroom.
It's highly unusual for television cameras to capture such an event. The Israeli army says it doesn't allow its soldiers to use civilians during military operations. And yet Palestinians here in Nablus and indeed across the occupied territories will tell you it is a widespread practice.
Jihan Dadouche says she was also forced to lead soldiers through the old city during last week's operation. She is 11 years old. They had their weapons pointed at me, she said.
I was so afraid that the soldiers might do what they threatened, take me to jail or shoot me.
It is illegal for soldiers to use human shields under international law, but Palestinian civilians are still apparently being used during military operations. The army says it is investigating these latest cases. Matthew Price, BBC News, Nablus.
Now, I saw another video on the web that was longer where Israeli troops have two young Palestinian boys stand in front of their Jeep so that it doesn't get stoned or bombed. That's it. And then there's a reporter, and he says, you know, you're using a human shield, and that's illegal. At first, the Israeli soldier says something to him back and forth, and then finally realizing what he's doing is illegal, he just slams the door shut of the Jeep and doesn't want to talk to the reporter anymore. Now, you got to give Israel credit because it was their Israeli human rights groups that pointed this out and the Israeli Supreme Court that said it's illegal. Now, unfortunately, Israeli Defense Forces have continued to use this tactic after the Supreme Court declared it illegal. And one thing is for sure, you lose all moral high ground complaining about how Hamas uses human shields, kind of, in a way by firing from civilian areas when they have nowhere else to fire from, when you literally use human shields, when you take young men or an 11-year-old girl in that case and put them in front of you, in front of the soldiers as you raid into houses. So the Israelis talking about human shields, I'm done with that. That argument is garbage. They've lost all right to complain about that.